what I'm going to show you here is how to use OBS Studio to capture displays. What I mean by that is if you wanted to make some tutorials, but you don't want to install Camtasia or don't have access to Camtasia or various other screen recording bits of software, OBS can be used for it. Now, OBS wasn't designed for this. It was designed for capturing 3D applications, as in computer games, to put it bluntly, anything that's generating a 3D content. But you can use it to capture a non-3D generated source material. Now, if you're going to download it, make sure you download it from obsproject.com. Don't download it from anywhere else. There are so many versions of this that are modified for different companies and things like that. It's an open source bit of software, so it's all over the internet, and a lot of them have been modified. So get the vanilla version, the one that's released by the people who actually program it, obsproject.com. So download it and then run it. I've got two versions running here because one version is actually capturing what we're doing, and the one I'm going to show you here is me pretending to be running it for the first time. Now, when you run this for the first time, you might get a connection wizard come up. Just cancel out of it because you're not interested in doing that because you're not streaming, etc., etc. In all honesty, if you are using it for streaming, still don't use that. It's better to set it up manually. Right. When you open this for the first time, you usually have something in here called scene and nothing else. This is all to do with my live stream and stuff. But you usually have something in here called scene, and this would be empty. If there is something in this one, just select it and hit the minus sign here to get rid of it, because I'll explain how this works in a moment. Now, scenes are basically virtual studios. They are really, as the name implies, a scene, but take it as a virtual studio, virtual space to arrange how your video or your capture is going to look. We're going to keep it very, very simple. Now, to capture, we need to tell it what to capture. So in the sources area, we're going to click on a plus and add a display capture. Now this display capture, you can rename to whatever you like, but I'm just going to leave it as is and do OK. And as soon as we do that, it starts to capture the display. Okay. If you have more than one monitor installed, let me show you, or more than one display connected, when you do the display capture, you can actually select which one you want to display. So display 1, display 2, 3, 4, how many have you got selected? Now, don't jump to start recording because there's a few things you need to do. As you can see on the bottom of my one, the mix live, so it's actually working. It's also got desktop audio here. So first off, you need to check this is all working before you do anything else. So what we're going to do is go to File, Settings, and we're going to jump to Audio. Now in the audio, you can set your sample rate at the top on your channels. I suggest you set that at least 48. Oh, this one only does 48, okay. 48 and stereo. There's no need to flip into this lot because it's just going to make your file size bigger, so just slip to stereo. You can even put it into mono in all honesty. Desktop audio, make sure it's set to whatever you're listening to the sound on. So I've got mine on my headphones, which is actually, it says speakers here, but I know this is actually my headphones, which I'm currently using, so I'm doing that. Mic, auxiliary audio, make sure that's set to whatever you're using to record. Again, I'm using my headphone for that, but if it's your built-in microphone, etc., etc., make sure you have that selected. So it will usually say microphone something something. That is all you really need to change on here. Okay, there's loads and loads of settings. I'm not going to go through all these settings and explain them unless I think it's handy, because a lot of it's to do with streaming, not for what we're going to do. Next off, go to the video. You're going to have your base canvas resolution, which is what the original, i.e. your display is. So you should set that to the same resolution of your display. It's usually the top one in the list, the native resolution of your monitor or the display that is being output by the computer. Output scaled resolution, so you could actually tell it to downscale to, say, for example, 1080p. But I advise you not to do that. I advise you to keep that for screen capture this way. If you're doing streaming, yeah, you may change this, but I would advise you to keep it the same. The downscale filter, it's like how it tries to sample. A lot of the time, most people use it on this, and in all honesty, that is fine. I have done experiments changing these all around, and I find for speed and stability, this is better. Keep it on by cubic, isn't it? Yeah. Then you have the FPS, sorry, how many frames per second it's going to capture. Now, this can be heavily influenced by the processing power on your computer. Mine's it's a very powerful computer, so I can easily capture way above 60 if I was available to do so. But if you're running on a low-powered laptop, you might want to drop this down to 29.97 or 30. Okay, so if you find you have stutters when you're recording, try dropping it down to one of these. I'm going to leave mine at 60 there. Then I'm going to apply that. Let me just double check my audio. I did apply it, didn't I? Yeah. Right, next up is we need to go to our output. Now, under output, make sure at the top it says advanced. And then click on the recording tab. On the recording tab, make sure standard is checked. That's the type. If you know what FFmpeg is, feel free, jump into that. But you need to make sure it's installed, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to keep it on standard. Recording path, set where it's going to record the files, obvious. You may wish to turn this on for some editing software that doesn't like spaces in file names and stuff like that. Recording format. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, I want it in MP4 or MOV. You know, Mac users MOV, PC users say MP4. Don't. Keep it in MPV. I'll show you why. If I switch to MP4, it automatically gives us a warning here saying, recording saved MP3 / MOV. Straight away, the two ones that most people want to use may be unrecoverable if something happens. The way MOV and MP4 work, the container isn't brilliant on them. If your computer crashes or locks up while you're recording, you tend to lose the entire recording. It's just the way that codec works. It's very hard to recover those files. If you use MKV, it's kind of safe. You can usually recover them. So keep it as MKV, especially if you're recording something that's long, it makes perfect sense. Audio track, leave it as the default 1. It kind of goes back to where we were mucking around with the audio, but it's all on level 1 at the moment. So don't muck with it. Like I say, this is more to do with streaming. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it as that because I don't want to make this too complicated. Encoder. If you've got a powerful graphics card, a NVIDIA one, one in the 2060, 2080 sort of range sort of thing, I advise you to put that on the NVIDIA encoder, simply because it's hardware based and it's a lot faster. If you've got another hardware based one that shows up in here, feel free to access that. Otherwise, it's the X264, the software encoder. Right, the NVIDIA one, if I'm using that, I will tend to make sure it's on lossless. Now this is the codec settings basically. I'll make sure it's on lossless, but it will generate bigger file sizes. So lossless with the presets ahead. And these two, again, these is really to do with streaming again, but I'll leave the default on. The GPU though is worth noting. If you've got more than one graphics processing unit within your computer, make sure you set this to the one that's not been used for the display. You don't have to. If it's powerful enough, you can just use that one. And then you can just apply that, and that's okay. If you haven't got the NVIDIA card, you're going to use X264, and you'll see this is different. Here, I would change this to, this is constant bitrate or variable bitrate. Again, it depends on your computer. These are the two you're really going to use. So constant bitrate, we'll try and always record it at whatever kilobytes per second you set it as. Variable bitrate will vary between the bit rates. It's going to try and make the target, but if the processing power's lacking, etc., it will drop. So you really want to do a constant bit rate. You will have to experiment with this, what your system can do. I tend to set it at 4,000, as a test bed, and then I'll lower it if that's not good enough, or if it's still producing stutters, definitely lower it. If it's not, the quality's not good, I'll whack that up even more. CPU usage, because it's not using the graphics card, it's kind of like, should I use, how much of the CPU should I capture at a time? Because we're just capturing the screen, i.e. not a 3D game or whatever, you can, turn this up to a little bit, so less CPU, because it's not going to be really hit bad. So you can drop this down a little bit, sort of thing. But otherwise, leave it as default and try that. Not going into the following options, basically. If you really want to know, look these up online. There's a lot you can do with this one. Keyframe, I will mention. Remember when we set the video option and we could set how many frames per second it would capture? So the keyframes is how many keyframes it does. So most video compresses based on a keyframe. It'll take a keyframe of perfect quality, then the frames after that will be compressed to the original keyframe. So if there's little movement, there's very little change. So it only compresses really where the mouse is moving on the screen or where you change something on the screen. So you can set that to like 1, 2 seconds, etc. But leave it as 0. It'll automatically do it itself. If you find you're getting bad corruption, again, you may want to just put 1 in there or 2 in there. But I definitely wouldn't go any higher than 2. But leave it as 0 to start with. And then just do apply. Once you've done that, OK the window. And this is what you need to start checking now. So with your with your microphone turned on, speak into it, and you want to make this green level doing roughly what mine's doing. You don't want it going up into the yellow, and definitely not into the red, but it should be high. When you're speaking loudly, it should be high. So it should be, almost hitting the yellow. And you need to test the audio for the desktop as well. Usually you have this slightly lower than your voice. So if there's any sounds coming through, it won't knock your voice out. So for example, I'm just going to make the default ding, So that was a little bit high actually, so I'll whack that down a bit. Let's try that again. There we go. So it doesn't wipe your voice completely out. So you might even want to whack that down slightly more, to tell the truth. Now, with those settings, you should be able to start recording. So as soon as you hit start recording, it will then start copying or recording the screen. So what I'm going to do is just quickly, actually, let's do start recording. I'll move this out of the way. And then I'll just, let's look at the news. There we go. Oh, we all know what's coming there. And then I'll stop this. Right, and if I look in my OBS folder where I've been telling it to record, that's the one we've just made. This is the one it's currently live recording now of what we're doing. So if we check the properties of this, you'll find the file size isn't too bad, but you see how small it was? Now if we check the property of this one that's currently recording, you can see the file size is already 0.5 gig. So the video that's produced, the raw video, is very big in size. It will get big. So you need plenty of space when generating this content. If you don't have lots of space on your machine, be aware you're going to need it. Now the problem is, now I've made this video, it's in MKV format. Now a lot of programs have trouble ingesting that. So OBS has its own ingester built in. So you simply go to this Remux recording, select on it, select the video you want, and then it's going to output it as an MP4 here by default. And then you just tell it to it. If we have a look here, move that over, close that, we have the MP4 format there. So exactly the same, but this one's in MP4 format. And then you can just take that, drop it into Premiere or whatever, and that's it. I would advise you to do all your editing in Premiere and everything. One last thing, if you wanted to add a camera, so of yourself, for example, down the bottom here, you can do that. So you would just add a source to your scene, change it to video capture, I think it is. Where is it? Yeah, video capture device. I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, there we go. Your camera will come up. Now, I find some cameras, even though they're set to HD or whatever, you may find they come with 4:3 resolution, etc. So you may have to configure it, etc., play around with all the settings in here. I'm just going to leave it by default, just want you to be aware it exists. Then do OK, and then you can scale on screen to wherever you want. So, for example, there's some part like you're doing an introduction and you're doing this, that, and the other, you can put it in. With it on, if you're using a dual screen, because this window you won't see, you can, blah, 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 then you can hide your video sort of thing. Then they won't see that, they just see the blank screen. But that's the advantage of having dual screens, etc. That's why I have multiple monitors set up. I just want you to be aware of that. Now, the difference between these two, in case you didn't realize, like I said, this is your virtual workspace, and this is all the stuff that's going to be displayed on it. But if you're going to add logos, in theory, yes, you could have logos like the URL banner, etc., etc. You can do image somewhere, if I remember rightly. I'm going blind. That image. So you could add the logo, etc. But I advise you to do that in the editing software. Right, that's all there is to it. That's all you need to know. And if you have any problems, give us a call, let me know, and I'll see if I can, what's causing the problem, basically. Right, good luck.